Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. It is 9:34 Eastern Daylight Time in Southwest Georgia, USA, on this Saturday evening, and I'm just sitting here. Had a wonderful phone call with my daughter early on, and some things over this last week. We just had a. Let me greet you all and say honor and blessings to every single one of you, and anyone who stops by and listens to my witticisms or attempts at humor. If you find life humorous, then you should find me hilarious. But anyway, so greetings and blessings to all of you, and for those of you who had any kind of brush with this last hurricane that went through, we lost power for 50 hours, and it's going to take us a while to put things back together down here in Southwest Georgia. And every community's got a little better or worse, and we all got it pretty bad. When I mean, there wasn't a light on anywhere for a day and a half. For 2 days. That second night, the lights came on late, but to the point. And blessings to all of those men and women who worked hard and overtime to put our electricity back together. I mean, there were folk all over cutting wood and doing stuff, and then that's when I had this realization during this last hurricane. Now I grew up in Tampa, Florida, and so my first hurricane was Hurricane Donna in '62 or maybe '63, but probably in '62, I think. But anyway, to the point though, it's like, well, at an early age, I knew what a hurricane was and what a storm and how to batten down the hatches and how to make simple, preparedness and things of that nature. And so it's like, okay. So I've grown up with this. In fact, in my era, we were taught, because especially because we lived in Tampa, then and MacDill Air Force Base is there, and the Cuban Missile Crisis was a couple hundred miles off the coast from us, was that we learned how to get up underneath our desk and hide in case an excuse me, a nuclear attack came by. I took some vitamins before I sat down here, and I need to wash them further down. And so, they taught us how to prepare back then, like get under a desk, with our hands over our heads and screaming for Jesus was going to save our sorry little, butts if a nuclear attack ever hit Tampa. But, that's how we were trained. One side of the building was nothing but windows. That was going to help, a lot. So it's like, Marie, hello, greetings to you. Little Saturday night, gravitational here, if you will. But I grew up in Tampa, so we've had our share of hurricanes and tropical storms and stuff. But when I got of age and 19 years oldish kind of thing, I decided that I wanted to get out of hurricane territory, and I ended up moving up here to Southwest Georgia, and I've been pretty much here the rest of the time. So I'm still a Southerner in a lot of ways, right? But growing up in town, in Tampa, so forth, it that's that. Even the most redneck of rednecks still aren't redneck enough for South Georgia. That's what I learned when I moved up here. So I moved up here as a big city slicker, even though it was from a southern town, even though it was Florida. And it's amazing because people up here in Georgia thought that anybody from Tampa was like we were city slickers, and not only that, but we weren't even true Southerners. And I was like, well, that was true because I was born in Ohio. So yeah, all right. I was born in Ohio, but all right. And most of my family, yeah, we are transplants, and yeah, my grandma, yeah, they're transplants too, and so's my aunt, and yeah, they're all well, none of us are actually from here, are we? So I guess them folks in Georgia were correct at the time. So, but then I moved up here and then became part of the quote southern Georgia community. I became part of the southernness of Georgia. And now, which is interesting because, as a city slicker from a southern town that wasn't southern, I found out, because I never really had true collard greens or mustard greens until I had them prepared by some of these, sure enough, and I mean this with respect, mind you, some of these backwoods folk who know how to cook the old ways. OMG, my goodness gracious me. Who sit me down to some showing up white corn pan made cornbread made in a cast iron skillet. All right, and to make it to where it'll rise and won't be so hard that you can't chew it, and and it tastes like leather. You got to try to stay away from that. That's how mine turns out. But these folks have put a little pinch of that and a dash of that and a little bit of that and a hell of a lot of love in their mixing. And they'd put that cornbread in there with some greens, collard greens, with maybe a little bit of ham hock or some neck bone, smoked neck bone. Woo wee. And throw that out there with some snap peas that came out of the garden. And I mean, I became a true Southerner then. It ain't nothing like having a show enough home cooked meal down on the farm than down here in Southwest Georgia. Now, further north you go, and I've been, as a traveling puppeteer and storyteller for many years, I've been in different areas of the state. So I've been over to the East Coast, over around Savannah and Kingsland, and over in there, and Jessup and different places, doing puppet shows and meeting people. And the culinary thing down here in South Georgia is kind of sort of true, but I gotta say that over here in the Southwest area, some of these folks have been cooking a certain way for a long, and North Florida, by the way, too. We can't leave out Quincy, Florida, that got hurt real bad with this hurricane that just came through the last couple of days ago. Mariana, Florida, Chattahoochee, Blountstown, and then them folks know how to cook too. Northern Florida, folks down around Miccosukee and all that down there in Northern Florida, yeah, you know who I'm talking about. And there's some good old dance bars and stuff out there on Lake Miccosukee. If you like some old country swing dancing and a little bit of folk music thrown in there kind of thing, a couple of beers and a little bit of wine and some, sitting out on the porch, Yep, that's the way it is down here in the South, at least many places. Now, to the point, though, is to the point of this here humor thing, but I'm giving you a little bit of background of how I come up and where I come to this. So, you know, I can turn on my Southern humor and my Southern accent, or I can talk like a Midwesterner if I so choose. But when I'm down here in the South, I learned it's like if you're going to be from the South, then you need to speak like the South. And I don't mean as an imitation. I mean, live it, be it, do it, right? So I could sit down on a bench with a couple of showing up old timers who were my age back in the day. And I'd sit down, and if I said, "Good afternoon, gentlemen, I would like to hear a story," they'd look at me and spit tobacco on the ground and go away, boy, you bother me. And now if I sat down there and I say, "Hey, old gents, greetings to you. Y'all got one of them old stories you got laying around inside your noggin?" Them old timers would be all of a sudden stories would be spouting out their mouth like you would not believe. Stuff would be coming out talking about them old days. And 40 years ago, when I more or less moved up here to Georgia, it was 45 years ago, more or less. But anyway, to the point, I've been here a long time now in South Georgia. And so it's like I've been around some of these old timers who were 80 when I met them 40 years ago. So some of these stories were firsthand. I mean, they're like, "Well, I remember when we used to pick cotton before they had cotton pickers. We was the cotton pickers. My hands would be so bloody by dragging that damn cotton sack to the field. Whoo, doggies, I'm here to tell you. One day was really long to the next day. Until all that cotton was picked, you didn't think them days was ever going to, but we picked all through the night because sometimes it was too hot in the daytime. I mean, I knew these people who were sharecroppers when they were younger, 50 years before, when they were in their 20s and 30s, at the turn of the century. And they told stories about what it was here, like down here in South Georgia, and how that back in the early days when all them folks died in around 1911, 12, 13, somewhere in there. A bunch of folks died throughout in here, and I've seen all the graves and how many people died. And that was the big flu epidemic back in them days. And there's all kinds of grave sites all over the place when you go into these old cemeteries and look, which is one of the, not a, some people say, well, that's creepy going to cemeteries, but I look at who was there, what's the name, when they died, is there any kind of thing, any family members around him, or, whatever. I'm just curiosity. Not, maybe it's morbid. I don't know. I never thought about it as being morbid. I don't want to dig anybody up, but I'm curious about history, And so down here where I'm at, there are a lot of hidden old cemeteries. And I've told a story or two about some of them. For Halloween, I think I'm going to tell a couple of cemetery stories that actually happened to me. And or one particular story was by a friend of mine who I would trusted with my life many times, and he with mine. So, and it was at the same cemetery, but he was there and I wasn't. So, but to the story, it went along with what I saw and what I witnessed and what we both witnessed together. But anyway, so there's some stuff down here in the South that is not written in any book. All right. So when I moved up here, I'm a city slicker and I'm bringing my old hippie ways and my, free thought ideas to the bunch of redneck communities down here, and free love back in the hippie days and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, well, I wasn't gaudy about it, but in the privacy of my own establishment, then, I felt the way I did, and that was that. But what I do and have always done is respect other people's rights and freedoms and whatever. And if you want to hang a stars and bars flag in your yard, then go right ahead. That's your right. And then I found out later on that I'm very probably related to Robert E. Lee, because if my mother and father had married before I was born, or after actually, my last name would have been Lee. And when I did all the research, Robert E. is very possibly a relative of mine way back when, and that we share certain traits. And it's almost like, in a way, I am Robert E. because I love mapping and surveying, and he liked that before he ever became a military general or anything like that. He was a mapper and a surveyor and so forth. And boy, do I have that in common. So he was an engineer of sorts before he was a general, and I take after that. So there are traits and certain things that it's like I could very well be related, because there are some of those traits that it could have passed down through DNA, etc. So that's as far as I'm going with making that claim. But it's very possible that I do have that heritage. So with that, I decided, maybe I need to really be a Southerner then, So then the jokes started to come out. What is it like to be a redneck? And I thought to myself, well, I considered myself just to be a Southerner. Okay, I moved out of Tampa, lived there. I didn't really have any ties to Ohio other than the fact that I was born there, But, okay, Tampa, the South, Florida, Georgia, traveled around through Alabama, Georgia, and Florida with the carnival for many years. So I got to know all of the South and parts of the South that a lot of other people never experienced at a time in the 60s and early 70s that was still going on. I mean, people are still using outhouses in Alabama in the late 60s and early 70s, and people thought, well, everybody's got indoor plumbing, right? Not necessarily. And it's like, depending on where you go, there might still be some places in the world, in the United States, that they don't have indoor plumbing. It wasn't set up that way. And there might be only 2 light bulbs in the whole house. So that's just the way they were built back then. And they were never updated for whatever reason or whatever. But to the point, though, it's like, so people nowadays, they take things for granted. So take this storm that just went by. Now, I had to giggle and I got to laugh. And I mean, I'm not trying to laugh at somebody's misfortune, but I'm thinking to myself, I finally get online late last night, early this morning, right? Check things out, see what's going on. And I realized that there are folks that once some of these little stores opened and everything, that the first thing they had to run on at these, whatever little stores were open, was toilet paper. It wasn't food. Toilet paper and bread were the 2 complaints. Well, sure, bread's going to run out, that's sort of and there's a bakery in Thomasville. So, I mean, when the bakery's down, well, the bread shuts down. And so, the bakery, they're trying to get it back up and running and everything. And so, but to the point though, Flowers Bakery, one of their home sites is in Thomasville, just down the road from me. So for there not to be bread on the shelves around here is a big deal. So I could see kind of sort of people kind of arguing over the bread, but then it came that it was like, but their fights broke out over the last rolls of toilet paper. And so, in all my redneckedness, I know better than to run out of toilet paper. And the other thing is that I know what to use in case I do. I have a backup plan. So I'm reading some of these comments of some of these people, and I'm thinking to myself, now, I still consider myself a little bit of a city slicker in ways because that's how I growed up. But then I look at some of these people who, even though they're supposed to be living in Southwest Georgia and be a little countrified, these people don't know what it was like back in the old days to have rolled up a page from the Sears Roebuck catalog, sitting on a two-seater, meaning an outhouse, a two-seater, and rolling up and sitting on the commode there, doing your business, sometimes sharing it with somebody. And which I remember being there with an aunt or an uncle or something, because I was 5 years, maybe 6 years old at the time. But I remember sitting there rolling up these pages out of the Sears Roebuck catalog. And of course, some of the first ones to go was some of the ones that nobody wanted to look at. Who, the pillowcases and stuff. Well, we'll never can afford this, Martha. And they'd rip that page out and wad it up and use it to wipe with. So I bring that suggestion up to folks today, and they're like, "What? Well, do you have any paper in your house?" Well, yeah, but it's not toilet paper. Well, so crumble it up and do it right, and you can turn it, you can use it. What? Well, yeah, but not all paper can be crumpled. What do you mean crumpled up? And I'm like, wait a minute now, hang on. Now, I know I'm an old fogey. That's one thing. And even some city slickers remember going to their grannies in their younger days back in the 50s and 60s and understanding what it meant. Like, if you pee, don't don't put it down in the toilet. Put it in. There's a special waste basket beside the toilet, because if you put too much toilet paper, it backs up the septic tank. So city people would not know that until you had to go out and dig your septic tank up because paper got stuck in it. So somewhere along the line, I have become an old redneck because I understand these things, but city folk are like, well, what do you mean? If I just pee or whatever, that I put it in this special can. Well, it's got a lid on it, to keep the smell down, and it gets emptied frequently. But you don't put all the paper in the septic tank all the time. It will clog it up. And what does that mean? It means everybody has to go outside. Now we got to go dig a hole, and now we all got to go sit on the same shitter at the same time. And it's like, okay, so wait a minute. So now in 2018, you'd think that folks would have a backup plan. You hear what I'm talking about? So you don't have a backup plan for if you run out of toilet paper? Can you use paper towels? What do you mean use paper towels? Are you serious? And I'm like, well, duh, put it in I got paper towel right here. Because Kleenex don't work for me, and so, but you take the paper towel, you can tear it in half, you crumble it up, and the more you crumble it and work it, it makes it softer. If you run out, paper towels is a damn good substitute. But there's folks running around right this minute as we speak, trying to figure out how to wipe themselves because they let themselves run out of toilet paper. Now, to the other side of this, realizing that I must be an old redneck, old rednecks, old country folk never run out of certain things. And it's like one of the old granny ladies told around one time, she goes, why would y'all run out of toilet paper? It doesn't rot. It doesn't get moldy unless it gets wet. It doesn't go anywhere. And if you use it one time the right way, you can use it again the left way. But it's all in how you look at it. But who don't have an extra roll of toilet paper stashed someplace? And I was like, you got a point there. It's, you can stick it up in a closet, you can put it on top of the thing. I mean, how hard is it to stash a roll of toilet paper, or a couple if you've got a larger family? So I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm not out of toilet paper, I'm not out of paper towels. Oh my God, I must be a redneck, because some of these old redneck kind of things. Now, I know there are people that live in the cities who do these things too. And it's not about prepping, it's about being practical. And when you live out in the country, there are things you do. It's like I knew several days ago, ooh, there might be a storm. So I went and got certain provisions. I didn't get another gallon of milk because I knew the lights would go out, then the milk would have went sour. And I also knew that I had a half a gallon of ice cream I hadn't ate yet, that it was going to melt, and I'd use that for cream in my coffee. Worked out just that way. Now, is this being redneck or what? It's like, well, somebody else might have thrown out that vanilla ice cream with that little chocolate swirl in there. Tasted really good in my coffee yesterday. I got to tell you about that, So it's like, but now other people are like, well, I ran out of this. I don't know what to do. And oh, Lord, have mercy. And I'm like, well, wait a minute now. It was just the electricity. You didn't have a hole in your roof. It's not that you couldn't go anywhere. You could drive, but all the everything was shut down. And I mean, everything was shut down. There wasn't no gas stations. There wasn't stores open. There wasn't anything. No street lamps. Nobody had lights. It was creepy. Okay. Nice, but it was still creepy. Talk about seeing the stars. Oh my God. It was clear that first night. Really clear. But anyway, so these people are running around being bat crap crazy right now. I don't have any toilet paper. And I'm like, well, do you have any old magazines? What about it? Well, do you have paper in your house? I mean, even school notebook paper, if you do it and work it, can be used in a pinch. I mean, better than your hand or other objects or whatever. Now, so people have water and they got lights and everything, but they don't have toilet paper. Bread we can live without. I got a 10-pound bag of flour in there I could make me some biscuits with. Now, flour might be a little flat, but I could still make me up something to go with my soup or whatever. So, I mean, okay. So, but does anybody have a bag of flour sitting at the house? Does anybody know how to bake biscuits from scratch anymore? I mean, if you can't have bread, a biscuit, okay, how about that? I mean, I know folks, and it's like, well, wait a minute. Well, you got lights back on. Can't you make your own biscuits? Well, no. I don't know how. There's directions are on the package, but I don't. Have we gotten so far out of that? And I'm like, well, then I must really be a redneck, because my biscuits ain't the best, but they're passable. And I can make them. At least they're good enough for me. I'm not trying to sell them at Walmart or nothing, but I'm like, all right. So then the other day, I mean, the morning after the storm, this South Georgia looks like literally somebody went over with a high speed hedge trimmer or something. Me being a landscape artist and worked over the years, you use a trimmer and you're shaping the bushes and everything, and you leave these tops cut off and they're everywhere, and then you sweep them up, get rid of them. Okay, that's what it looked like everywhere down here. That somebody took a huge machine of some sort and trimmed the tops of every single tree everywhere, because this debris is everywhere. Okay, down here, it's in the middle of the fields. I mean, there might not be trees for 2 or 3 acres, but there is still debris in the middle of the fields. Unbelievable. And so here we are. So I'm thinking to myself, well, now, all right. So my friend comes to visit me and he goes, wow. He said, your yard looks kind of sort of like mine. And I said, it does. And he goes, yeah. He goes, somebody come down to my house, and he goes, Eddie Murphy's my neighbor's name, lives down the road. He's white and not funny, but we've been friends for a long time. And so Eddie tells me, he goes, Dave, he says, my neighbor come up, and that same neighbor come by my house. And by the way, that people were just checking on each other in the neighborhood. It's amazing, Nobody asked these folks, but they drive down here to say, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt, but you okay down here? Need anything? Anybody hurt? No, thank you, bye. And I might not ever see him again, but that's how people are. A lot of folk down here in this area. So, in knowing some folks, as long as I've been here, they just drop in. Wow, thank you. So he tells me, he goes, he says, I've myself, and he has too. We've torn down old buildings, one or two of them together for the wood, split the wood, and we're going to build another building. That's how I built my chicken shed and parts of my barn. My house is made out of old tobacco barn and some old wood from some old houses and things like that. So before I got hurt, I had just pulled in a good load of some good used lumber, some oak 1x4. Oh my God, is it beautiful? And I haven't had a chance to clean it all. So it's in a stack out there, covered. And one of these days, if the termites hadn't got it, I'm going to use some of it here in the house. So anyway, he comes by and he goes, so I don't see anything in your field. And I said, yeah, I understand. He goes, my neighbor came by and said, wow, I can't imagine. Look at all that's in your yard. Where did all this come from? Did a barn blow loose from your neighbor's house and end up in your front yard? And Eddie said, no, that's how my yard looked before the storm. And I was like, oh my God. He goes, I can tell you've been working over here, because I was sorting wood and getting some of the old rotted wood out, picking some boards. I'm going to make some shelves for my greenhouse and everything. So I'm picking wood out and going to burn the rest and everything. Winter's coming on. I can have a fire in the house. And he looked at me and he goes, look, he said, did you lose anything in your storm? I said, Eddie, I have to admit, I have become a redneck like the rest of some of y'all down here. I said, none of my piles have been touched. And they should have. I mean, the way that wind was blowing, there should have been some of the wood that I've got way out towards the end of the edge of the field out there. The wind should have picked this stuff up and literally tossed it everywhere. And it didn't. So, and he looked at me and goes, I don't know what protects us, Dave. He says, I think that we have just, the good Lord looks out after us dumb old rednecks. He goes, I don't know how else to explain it. He said, but everything in my yard, he said, maybe one or two things was knocked over. He said, but what my neighbors come in and they want to know how all this debris got in his yard. And he goes, well, it was like that before the storm. And I said, Ed, I have to admit, because I've been working here at the house and cleaning stuff up and all. And I said, I have to admit, I was worried that all this stuff was going to get knocked down or whatever. And I said, one of the cement bags came loose, an empty one. And I said, it blew across the yard. That was the worst damage I could tell. So, you have become a redneck when. So then another neighbor comes in to check on me, and he looks at the pile. My friend Ed has just left, so I've got this little bit of humor in my mind, thinking, yeah, I really, now that the weather's cooled off, I'll be able to take care of some of this stuff I've been working on for the last 3 years, right? And I really want to take care of it. It's just when my health has been so crappy. It's not because I don't want to, or gave up. I really want it done. So. To have a greenhouse. Yeah. Come on. That's a good thing, right? So anyway, this other neighbor comes in and goes, wow, it looks like you've had some barn damage, Dave. Well, I tore down the front of this one barn because I'm going to replace it with windows as a semi-greenhouse part of the shed. I can use the front of it, which gets all the early morning, all the morning and early afternoon sun. And I can use it as a start house and whatever, and also put some lights in it for, extra lighting afterwards. But then use the rest of the shed. I mean, why close off the wall? I mean, why? I've got windows that I need to get off the ground and use. Why not turn it into a greenhouse on that wall face, that gets so much sun? Use the back of the shed for, holding the battery charger and all that mess, So I was like, yeah. So I'm reinventing my place to be able to grow more things. Too many walls of my shed should have windows in them, and I should be growing vegetables in there, So it's like, okay, so I'm on this kick. Let me use up the wood, fix up my barns, and I'm going to transform this place with the windows that I have saved, bought, and collected over the years. And I'm going to turn it, as much of it as I can, into greenhouse. So that's my thing. So the guy walks up and he looks around the yard and he goes, I'm so sorry you lost the front of your barn. He goes, are you going to need any help? And I said, no, sir. I've already figured out how to replace it with windows. And he was like, what? He didn't know that I had already torn down the side of the shed and that I'd stacked the wood out away from the shed, but I hadn't had the chance to move the stack yet. So he thought that the wind had done it. So I'm like, I must be a sure enough South Georgia redneck now, because even the farmers around here think I'm part of the woodwork. So then to top it off, you are a redneck when somebody comes up and says, you know, you got two old vehicles in your yard that's up on blocks. Yeah, I got my old Isuzu and I got my Toyota over there and I got my truck. Well, you must be a redneck because you got more than one vehicle up on blocks. And I just started busted out laughing. I thought, well, I had never thought of it. I've saved my old Isuzu because it was an 80s model before they started putting computer chips and everything, and it has a carburetor. And I've always wanted to build a gasifier. And since it's a pickup truck, I put a gasifier on the back of the pickup truck and burn wood chips kind of thing. So, but I can't do it with my Mazda or any of these other vehicles I have because they're too new and they have fuel injection in them. See, so I've kept this old Isuzu up there on the hill because of that. And its transmission was good and everything. I'm sure the brakes are locked up and I'd have to drag it down here. But to the point, I've got two vehicles. So it's like, well, now what else qualifies me as a redneck? And somebody said, well, I noticed that you've got over 3 chickens. You must be a true South Georgia redneck if you've got more than 3 chickens. And I was like, okay, I got 11. Okay, must be a redneck. Must be a redneck. All right. All right. What else makes me that? Well, Mr. Dave, which is more important, your canoe or your shed? Then I was like, well, it depends. And they were like, you're a redneck. And I was like, huh? Well, because anybody that's worth his weight in salt down here knows that a canoe is more important than your shed. You can fix your shed anytime, but you don't want to lose your canoe or John boat, as the case may be. Okay. So I was like, I must be a redneck then. Because I sold the John boat and got a canoe. It was easier to paddle. But anyway, so it's like, oh, and then I got a motor. Strange how things happen. So it's like, okay, so I must be a redneck then. All right. And somebody said, well, okay, well, if we go out and we're going to have something to eat, if you had your choice of foods, what would it be? If I was to offer you some caviar or some good down home cooked collard greens, which would you have? Oh, I said, collard greens. Damn the fish eggs. Okay. Well, then you must be a redneck. And a southern redneck. There are rednecks up north that don't eat collard greens, but I think that's because they're too far north to understand how they're supposed to grow. But anyway, they grow up at the wrong time of the year. And so right now down here in the South, it's time to grow greens. I'm ready in my garden in the back, and it's now, especially after this storm, um, I'm going to check out and, collards and turnips and mustard got to go in now. Wait another couple weeks and then I'll put in some broccoli and stuff. All that does better down here in the South during the wintertime. I mean, if you saw Colquitt County and down here, they grow more cabbage in this county than you could shake a stick at. I mean, when they go to pick it in the early spring, January, February in there, when they pile it on the farm trailers. Thank you very much. They'd go around the corner and heads of cabbage will fall off on the side of the road. I've seen ladies in big old Cadillacs stop in the middle of the road to pick up a head of cabbage. I mean, I'm telling you the truth about that. So, so this is the time of year for that. So I realized over this past time that with my bathroom understandings and the fact that I knew what a 2-seater was, where most folks don't anymore, meaning there were 2 seats at the privy or the outhouse or whatever you called it back then. And that a Sears and Roebuck's catalog comes in handy for more than just looking at. So there are lots of things. And at the moment, I'm like, I'm just so glad that I know some of these old country tricks, because it's like, Number one, I'm not out of toilet paper. And number two, I got a backup plan. And when that backup plan runs out, I actually have another. So it's like these poor folk who are trying, literally getting in fist fights over toilet paper. Wait till they run out of food. I'm like, I'm staying here. I got an extra roll of toilet paper, but you're going to have to come here to get it. And don't nobody want to drive to the country to see me anyway. So y'all fight over the toilet paper where you are and figure out for yourselves. I'm thinking about my friends in Thomasville. It's going to be a couple days before the stores get stocked back up. Lord have mercy, are these people going to kill themselves over toilet paper? I'm like, I had thought of a lot of things, but I never thought it would boil down to toilet paper. Just saying. So let me look at my kin is from Linden, Alabama. Linden, I've been through Linden, Alabama. Rick and Delaney. I've traveled through there with the carnival years ago, and old socks too. Potash keeps the flies out. Absolutely. See, and now what's potash? Well, if you burn something in the yard, take the ashes and use it. It's sort of like potash. But anyway, there are so many things that these younger folk, and there are some older folks, and I think that they've just forgotten it. It's like they've become so used to the fact that I have toilet paper all the time that I I don't know. I've forgotten what it was like when I was a young'un, when I visited Granny's house. We used, newspapers and things. What? So, I have newspapers and things laying around that I don't ever use, but it's for starting fires or whatever. And guess what? If I ever run out of an item, I can crumple these things up and I'll wipe myself with it. I know how to do. You have genetic memory. Marie, how are you? How are you? How are you? Hi, Ice Station Z. Love you guys much, much, much. Stampede strings inside. Yep. That's riding my bicycle and wants to fly off. Actually, it's hurricane straps, but there you go. Um, this is my old, sure enough, going out in this is my swamping hat. This is my um, Arkansas Jones hat. That's what they used to call me in the day. Yeah, you know what being poor is quite well. And there's one thing about being poor. It's like we've learned how to make do. And so some of these folks, they don't really have any money either, but they're so rich that they think they're rich. And they've forgotten where their roots are coming. I'm talking white people here, and it's like, wait a minute. I knew your mom and dad. I knew your grandparents, and your grandparents had an outhouse, and they talked about these things. And now it's like, well, I'm too good for it, but you're out of toilet paper. Well, I'm too good to use the catalog paper. Well, then wipe yourself with whatever you got then. Just saying, so bitch about it. And, and I'm like, but I'm prepared, you know. Your support can't afford paper towels. I get that. Um, but to the point though, it's like most people don't understand. It's like when I go camping, people say, "Don't you take any toilet paper?" And I go, "Yeah, paper towels." What? And I said, if I take toilet paper, it's only going to take a couple of drops of water, and that whole roll of toilet paper is going to be mush. It's going to be worthless. If I take a roll of paper towels and they get wet, I can dry them out. And then I can wipe things and dry them out again. And then I can do this. And then when they're through being a paper towel, I can use it to wipe my keister with and bury it wherever I might be camping. And so it's like, but folks would never consider a paper towel as having a double duty. And it's like, well, duh. But anyway, stepdad, he was on how much toilet paper he used. He taught us how to fold it. Yes. Yes. I was taught how to fold the paper. Three blocks, three pieces. Oh my God. I didn't know that somebody else was taught how many squares to fold. Oh my God, I can't believe that. Marie, that's absolutely hilarious. Yep, I try to keep my carbon footprint as small as possible too, Rick Delaney. Absolutely. Used to make dough and sweet bread. Yep, back in the day. Got myself some powdered yeast. Absolutely. We and I want to get back to doing it now that I'm up and around more than I have been for a while, and summer's over, thank God. I'm ready for this cool weather feels great. I don't have a fan on in the house and it's just like perfect weather. It's like 74 degrees. Now I could stand a little bit of air movement, but I'm trying like to after the last few days, I'm like trying to not be that way because I found out I was addicted to a fan. Badly. And I hate to be addicted to anything, but just saying. What I was going to say about the bread was is that we used to do this thing where you shared some dough and you'd make like a sourdough or whatever it was, a friendship bread, I think is what it was called. But that, you'd get a starter piece of yeast bread and then you'd give after it had did its thing and it was ready, then you tore a chunk of it off and you gave it to a friend, and then they would take it and they would make another yeast ball and then they would make bread, and then they would take a piece of that and give it to their friend. And so it this friendship bread went around down here. Probably most of the folks who did it back then are all dead now, but there are folks like me who was like the next generation down. So it was my in-laws, fathers and mothers who have passed away, and they're some of those folks did it. And now I was talking to a couple of friends of mine the other day, and we were talking about starting up that friendship bread again. And I was like, I don't have anything else to do. Why not? Get some dough, get some yeast, do the thing again. Make my own bread again, like I used to do. But there are times I'm still asleep for 2 days, and sometimes you need to be at least on a daily basis. You need to check these things. So, but just saying, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I need to get back into doing a thing like that. It was the idea of going to visit your friend, and sharing the bread that they made. And then when you got some of the dough and you made yours, you shared your bread. You took it and said, look, this is some of the bread I made. I baked, I brought you a couple of slices for you to check. And I mean, and it was the camaraderie of just visiting people. And guess what? It was Christ-like in many ways, in that you were breaking bread and sharing it with your neighbor or friends or relatives. And there was a lot of spiritualness in that. Well, I went over to see Martha the other day and I took her some of my homemade bread. I got some jam from down the road from old Mr. Ethel, and I traded him some of my fresh bread, and he gave me some jam, and I took it over and shared it with Martha. This is the way it used to be. Now, those of us who are getting 65 ish, 66, my case, lower 60s for some of these other friends, we're all having like a reawakening of old peopleness. I don't know how else to explain it, in that, what? Go back to making bread? Well, what else you got to do? Well, that's what grandma used to do. Well, not every grandma, but some of them did. Well, why not? And it's not necessarily, well, it's too easy to buy it at the store, Dave. Why would you want to go through all this stuff with a sourdough and a visit and all that crap? Why don't you just go to the store? Because sometimes the store ain't got it. And have you ever tasted home baked bread? Sure enough, real sourdough you made with, oh my God. You, sorry, but store bought don't cut it, literally. So I go to the store for butter, but okay. So, but why not? And so I think that for a lot of us, there are things that bring us back to home, to being an old redneck, if you will. Because in the old days, old ladies made bread every day. There was always cornbread, and they made it in the oven or on the stove every single day. Sometimes there was white cornbread at lunchtime because they didn't want to heat up the house. But at the end of the day, they'd fire up the stove and they'd make some rising cornbread. And so it's like, what? So you got cornbread at both meals. Both of them were cooked for that meal. It wasn't something left over. And I guarantee you there wasn't a drop of that stuff left over at the end. I remember being so stuffed full of, I mean, help pick them in the garden kind of peas, and it'd be with this fresh cornbread and all this other stuff, and sit there with fresh biscuits, and then for dessert, you'd open up a biscuit and you'd pour some honey on it, and then a little bit of blueberry jam, and that's what you had for dessert. And you talk about something that send you just miles out, and then you'd go sit on a front porch and maybe smoke a cigarette if you did, or put your feet up for a few minutes, and you went back out to the field and you worked till sundown. That's how it was. And so some of us, even though those kinds of things aren't around anymore, there are still those families who do that. But the camaraderie of having the meal, and it's not so much that it was that great, but it was home cooked. We all worked in the same gardens to grow it. There was love in everything we did. Now the cornbread, we didn't, the corn meal they bought from the store, but it was made with love, with all the attention and the cooking and all that kind of stuff. That special whatever them old ladies used to do, that cornbread, I swear, anybody these days, they just don't do it like them old timers did. But there are those of us who are remembering that. And it's not that we're wishing for those times back, but we're looking at it and saying, well, but why can't we do some of these things? What's keeping us from making our own bread again? What's wrong with making cornbread at every meal or whatever? Now, me personally, by myself, I could make some cornbread and it'd last me 2 days, but that's okay. I like cold cornbread, and it's easy to put in the pan and a little bit, just a dash of water, and steam it fresh again. I mean, if you know the tricks from the old timers, something a day or two old really ain't that bad. You pick the mold off the corner and you don't eat that part, but you heat up the rest, and yum, yum. Put some blackberry jam on it or whatever and go for it. So it's not so much that, we're looking back at, oh, I wish that I had to go out back to go to the toilet. That ain't what I'm saying. But some of the old ways of, cooking and visiting with friends and sitting on the porch and, and just talking about the day, not getting in arguments and wanting to shoot each other and stuff like that. Folks talked politics back in the day, but it was talked with what they called a genteel way, a gentle way, genteel. Are you a true gentleman of the South, or you are one of those ruffians? My goodness, James, you should act more as a genteel gentleman. You should be more aware of what you say around the ladies. You can speak your mind, but with a dignity and a genteel way about you, sir, that will not embarrass the ladies, nor make a nuisance of yourself. Yep. So things were done differently. And it's like a lot. I raise my hand and go, I remember those days. There wasn't really anything wrong with that part of those days. The outhouse out back can do with that. Do without that. That's okay. But the rest of some of this stuff is like being a true Southerner, what some folks would call being an old redneck. Well, I went out into the field there, to the edge of the field, and went down there and I found me an old sassafras tree. And I dug down in there real good and found me some of them there root. And I brought it back and I made some sassafras tea. Lord, I have mercy. That's the best stuff you ever done taste in your life. Mm-mm. People don't do that no more. Well, in fact, I have complained about it around my neighborhood. They've cleaned up all the fence lines and they tore out all the sassafras trees. I can't get natural sassafras anymore. They yanked it all up, damn it. But to the point, there are still places where there is sassafras, up north especially. But how many people go and know how to dig up sassafras root and how to make a tea? I mean, sassafras tastes a lot like root beer. I mean, it's like yum yum. And so you can even just nibble on a little bit of the root and get that root beer flavor in your mouth. It's healthy for you. It's good for you. Blah blah blah. And as a medicinal plant. But we don't do those kinds of things anymore because wow, it just takes up so much time. We'd rather sit with our cell phones and text and Twitter and tweet and twook and FB and BF and FBBBF and So those things are just old and we shouldn't do them anymore because they don't make any sense to us. But for us old timers now, I know there are folks that live in cities and they, want to go to their favorite restaurant. But, those folks of us who are so poor we can't pay attention, we know that the things to be happy with are all around us if we look. And that's one of the things I talk about sometimes. It's like, happiness is where you find it. Once you've been in jail, and I mean, sure enough, maximum security prison, anything else is like gravy. You know, when you have all your rights taken away, you think FEMA camp, I was in maximum lockup. But to the point, though, I understand what freedom means. Other people, no. When you don't see the light of day for a year and it could have been longer, the thing is that I appreciate even the smallest things because when you don't have them at all, mm. So people complaining no toilet paper, you got things to do. Quit complaining. Is it what you're used to? Is it the Downy soft 4-ply? No. Is it a piece of notebook paper that you had to scrunch up? Sorry about that. You should have thought ahead. Should have thought more like a old redneck. You always keep some toilet paper and some paper towels stuck up in the closet. You never know when you might need them. Your car might break down and you can't get to town for a week. What you gonna do if you run out of stuff? Well, the first thing you do is if you use one of them there emergency rolls, you buy two to replace it. One to go back in the closet and one to use when you get to the house. So folks, I know folks who talk like this, and I'm not trying to be rude about it. I've lived down here in the South, and folks talk like this. Not being rude, but actually, I guess I'm kind of giving them a pat on the head because to a lot of folks, otherwise, man, them damn there stupid folk down there in the South don't know what the hell they're doing. Well, then how come these damn stupid folk down here in Georgia were driving around in their pickup trucks with chainsaws in the back, cutting up trees so that when it came time for the EMC guys, the Electric Membership Corporation, the rural electric guys, when it came time for them to come and put the lines up, all them rednecks with chainsaws had already cleared a lot of the roads. That's the truth. I saw them do it. In fact, I was trying to help the one gentleman, and two gentlemen came down to my house and cut two pine trees that fell across my own driveway. That's how I know it happened because they came to my house and made sure I was safe. So sometimes people complain about us old southern Georgia and Alabama and Mississippi. I know folks in Alabama. Not I used to know. Well, I sort of know folks in Mississippi. But I know that these true Southerners, these true rednecks, will come and check on you and check out and see if even when they don't know you. They might know you live in the neighborhood, might not ever met you, but simply because of how they was raised. Mama said, everybody needs to check on everybody. And some of us old folk, we remember that. When I could, I got out of here and I went and checked on some of my friends who at the time couldn't get out of their place. And I snuck my way through. I went around 3 down power lines, road crossings, trees across, rode down in the ditch just the other day to go and see my friend 10 miles up the road from here and to check out how things were going and so forth. So I know I've been around in my own neighborhood and I saw other people helping other people. And it's just a shame that somebody didn't have a semi truck full of paper, so full of toilet paper. Because, but I bet you, and I can guarantee you, the rednecks with chainsaws that were clearing the highways and the back roads around here weren't out of toilet paper either. So that's part of the humor of this. There are those of us who get it. We understand. You live in the country, deal with it, But for folks to be fighting over toilet paper at a time like this, I'm sorry. I still have to laugh about it. My mind is picturing these people, and some of them with some pretty big asses, and trying to find where they need to, and they didn't crumple the paper just right or long enough. And I can hear these people right this minute as we speak bitching about not having toilet paper. And like I said, it's probably going to be Monday before things get back to normal. And this is just Saturday night. So, I will pray for those folks, but at the same time, I'm going to be I'm going to be giggling at some of the sites that will pop up. Now, I'm not trying to I maybe I am making fun of them, but I'm just thinking there are people that I know and their physiques, and I'm just thinking, what would these people do without toilet paper if they had? Oh my God! So I maybe I am making fun. I'm not picking on anybody, but I could see these folks trying to do this mess, and I bet you can find somebody too that just picture somebody. Oh crap! Oh, they'd have a hard time with that. You know, just imagine thousands of people, if there were going to be hell on earth, it would be to take away toilet paper, especially and I know all women are not like this because I have met them, but there are some uppity women that if they don't have four-ply, they ain't, you know. And so it's like, oh, God bless you that you got to roll up a newspaper and take care of your business there. I'm not going to be rude about it, but I'm getting these pictures flashed in my head and I'm like, oh my God. And when she's like, oh, but I wouldn't touch myself without anything but a four-ply. And then it must be folded in four places. And then it must be scented because my pudenzas must smell good when I'm through with the wiping, if you understand my position with this. And so I know these uptighty, thick, whitey tighties with some of the, there is an old, some of the poor whites, them are whitey tighties right there, them white people right there, they got whitey tighties. What do you mean whitey tighties? Well, they're whitey tighties. They're white underwears. And they're always white and tidy. So they're white and tighties. So it's like, they didn't call them, rich, arrogant assholes like they should have. They called them whitey tighties, but it meant the same thing. Actually, it was worse because, and then them whitey tighties get their tighties in the wide. Oh, them whitey tighties, And so I think about some of this thing, and I think about some of these whitey tighties and and how they handle a situation like this when, God forbid, they can't, have their foreplay, And I'm wishing no bad harm on anyone. But, something as simple as this is like, come on now. I've been through hell these last couple of days. A friend of the family's passed away early today or last night. And, I'm thinking to myself of all the things in it. I could be sad, and I am sad for losing my friend, But to the point, though, we've all understood that one day we were all going to die. And that, being sad and missing someone, but being sad on purpose, to be sad because you're afraid to laugh. It's like I've told people, when I pass along, y'all better have a party. Y'all better have a rip snorting. Now you can cry all night long. I don't care, but I want you to have a party. I want you to laugh. I want you to sing. I want you to dance. In fact, at one time, folks probably forgot about it, but the Groucho Marx glasses that you buy at the dollar store, with the fake mustache and the big nose. I said, at my funeral, that's what I want passed out. I want everyone who comes to my funeral, if I have one, if you can find my body after it's done, okie dokie. But to the point, I want you all to wear those Groucho Marx glasses. You can't get in the party. We'll have some on hand. I'm going to buy a gross of them before I die and have them in a box marked for Dave's funeral, but that everybody's supposed to come and please celebrate the fact that while I was alive, I had some hard times, but I want to celebrate the passing. I don't want to. You can mourn for me now, if you will, but please, okay, miss me when I'm gone. All right. But when I make that transition, I want you to party. Have a Jack Daniels on me. You know what I'm saying? Have a Jack and Coke, for God's sakes. Have a shot of some blackberry brandy, on my behalf, and say, there you go, Dave. We'll see you soon. Or maybe not so soon, but to the point, it's like salute, So, man, I'm looking at this like, man, there was so much death and destruction with this hurricane. I stood outside, and my daughter called me tonight and said, "Pops, we watched your video of you standing outside with all the rain and the wind and everything. It was like it was worse at your house than it was down where they were at, down on the Gulf, outside of Pensacola." So it was like, holy crap. But I thought to myself, I'm not afraid of dying anymore, but I am afraid of leaving folks behind that I haven't said I love you to, or that, I would still love to, hold my great granddaughter. I would still like to give my granddaughters a hug, another hug. I haven't seen them in years. So, there are things I would like to do, but at the same point, I'll give them a spiritual hug every single moment, every single day, and they can't get away from it. Old Grandpa D is going to give them a hug regardless of whether I'm there or not. Tough luck. I love you anyway. And so it's like, but I've realized, we need to laugh more with all the turmoil and all this stuff, and I saw all the destruction. I mean, just in my area. And then I watched the videos, and I've been through hurricanes in Florida. I saw a whole trailer park across the road from me get destroyed in North Tampa one year. A little tornado came down and spun in there and ripped out all the trailer. It was an older settlement of trailers, one of the old southern trailer parks. And of course, this was back in the early 70s. And it came in there and wiped it out. And I was like, I'm out of here. I'm not living here anymore. Well, guess what? Hurricanes followed me. I think there's been more hurricanes that came through my area up here in Georgia than have hit Tampa since I left. Maybe they're attracted to me. Who knows? Maybe not. But to the point, though, uh, we need to laugh at some of this stuff. And if running out of toilet paper right now is the thing that we laughed at, then let's all have a belly full of it. You know, if watching rednecks and flip flops during a flood from a hurricane will make you, get your giggle on, then it's time that we all start giggling. I was outside the other day in my flip flops, and I remembered the flood that I'd seen earlier in the Carolinas, and I'd made a video about this redneck holding his beer and whatever. Now I can't tell, I can't say it was a beer, but it was a beverage. He was holding a beverage. I cannot positively identify that it was a beer. But if he was a true redneck in flip flops in a flood, then it was a beer. But just say it, you got to hold that thing true, right? So, but I thought to myself, I'm outside in my flip flops during it was raining pretty hard and the water running down, and I'm thinking, now I'm the redneck in flip flops, not quite the same kind of flood, but in a hurricane, I should have had better sense. And sure enough, as wind knocked me off balance, I've slipped with one foot, and I'm like, you see, here I must be a true redneck because I'm wearing my freaking flip flops in a flood and a hurricane. All right, I passed the test. Now I don't have a beverage, I don't drink beer or anything like that anymore. I will have a shot of blackberry brandy on occasions, and I do love a shot of Boodle's gin every once in a while. It's really good, expensive, but ooh, if you've never tried Boodle's gin, I bought it so that I could use it for tinctures. In fact, this hurricane, I'm going to have to go out tomorrow and check. But I've grown a lot of mullein this year, and I was going to take the leaves and soak it in the gin to take the oils out and make a tincture. And so I had Boodle's gin years ago. It's made out of some kind of spruce or something anyway, juniper berries or something from England or something, and it's rather high price. But if you just have somebody says, "Well, I want to have gin," blah blah, try Boodles. I mean, I drink it like just no, I chill it, but I just drink it straight. Ooh, mm, not bad. So anyway, just say it. So, but it's a small bottle of Boodles, enough for a couple of good shots so I can share with a friend for a little salutation. So I'm not a complete teetotaler, but I used to be a drunk. I mean, sure enough, 2, 3, 4 beers every day, and this being Saturday, I'd be halfway through a quart of, or at least a fifth of Jack Daniels by now. Just saying, or rum. Bacardi's rum was another one of my favorites too. So, I You guys have been yanking on so much. Rambling's always, as always. I have Dave. I'm good. I lost your messages all the way back up. You went to Walmart's and got some more dollar lights. Yeah, exactly. And but just saying, I have so many things that use the AAA bulbs that when I buy one of these for $1, I get extra LEDs, and I get three AAA batteries. And when you buy them new, the batteries are good. So there are times when I needed the batteries more than I needed the flashlight because I needed them for my headlamp. And it's like, wow, damn, my batteries have run out of batteries. I got an extra one of these, still got the tag on it, and the batteries are brand new. Sweet. So, yeah, I could put this on my hat, but that don't work. But anyway, but to the point, it's got at least batteries in it for another usage. So they come in really handy, especially for $1. But yeah, to the point, absolutely. Uh, Taught us discipline so we can't complain, table etiquette and manners, especially in winter when season keeps your cabin fevered. Oh gosh. Now we're coming up on our winter, but Marie, um, somehow it looks like your last name changed spelling, and it's like, hang on, you're the same Marie, but wait a minute, never mind. Uh, Boy, talk about some weird Mandela effects these last few days. Jail? Yeah, me too. Backyard backpacker tourist. Uh, yep, as a backpacker, I'd take my lightweight little sleeping baggy thingy. I've got a jungle hammock, $40 for a jungle hammock. I can't bend down, and I've got small tents, but I'm just not able to bend down and get up as quick. So it's easier for me. And down here in the South, there are a lot of trees, especially in the swamps. And you're better to be off the ground in the swamp, by the way. Snakes and crawly things, but alligators. Um, but that it's easier for me to get out of a hammock because I'm already halfway standing. So when in the middle of the night when I gotta go do my business, and I gotta go tinkle, damn it, it's like, whoa, that's easy to do. But crawling out of a tent, but anyway, it's a lightweight thing, only weighs a couple pounds, and fits in my backpack. And this and that. Now I can't walk as good as I used to, so I got a kayak and a canoe. So instead of walking where I want to go, I pick a waterway and I canoe it or water it or something. And I take my backpacking, low impact stuff with me where I go. And man, I can go, throw a boat on the top of the truck, and man, if there's water somewhere, I'm good to go. And with a backpack, I can mount it to or wear it in my kayak. Now, if I got my canoe, I can take a few more items, a cooler or something. But it's still to that point, I still pack very lightly. I don't need a lot of stuff, but ice and cold drinks sometimes is really nice to have, when you're out and about. But Pamela, how are you? You did specify humor in the title. This made my night. Redneck humor. Can't judge people by the way they look or talk, or just not okay. Kind of sort of like that. And one of the things, Rick and Delaney is like, I looked in the mirror one day and I realized I had become one of those old men who come into Walmart once a week. I had become that person. And I was like, saw myself in the mirror and I was like, wait a minute. Now I grew my hair long just simply because I told myself when I was younger, everybody told me I had to cut my hair to work someplace. And I said, fine. But when I get to the age where I'm retired or whatever, if somebody tells me I got to cut my hair, we're going to have a fight. And I'm going to let it grow till I decide to cut it off. Period. That's the reason I have long hair, but it's just my choice. And one of these days, I've had so much hair come out that the tops of my hair is like all these hairs that are covered up are the ones that broke off and new hairs, but these are all real short. So it's like, it's going to take 3 years to catch up with the rest of my hair. So at some point, I'm probably going to, screw it. I'm going to cut it off. But to the point, it's like, hey, but now I looked at myself and I was like, wait a minute. that guy looks like me. Oh shit, I am that guy. That's my reflection in the damn glass in Walmart. Oh, holy crap, I became that old guy with the pickup truck that comes into town. Oh crap, I am that guy, you know? Oh man, especially when I got my canoe on top and the fishing gear hanging off, is like I know I am a redneck because, you know, start cutting up the sheets, right? Just the meat suit died. Yep. Actually, absolutely. Yeah, there are lots of things to do and how to deal with the TP. But the thing is like, if you know what to do, and it's like I was telling people the other day, when I go into Arby's or something and get a sandwich, I always get a few more napkins, and they're stashed in behind the seat of my truck. Because there have been times I've been stuck out somewhere and had to go, do something, and it's like, I've got to stop by the side of the road, or I'm getting old and can't hold myself, and oh, holy crap, right? And also when I go camping, extra napkins come in handy for all kinds of stuff. And there are times when I just jump in the truck and want to go to the river, and then I think, oh crap, I didn't bring any paper towels. Well, I've got these stuff behind the seat, right? It doesn't cost me anything. It's always in the truck. Well, but then I think to myself, I've got backup of toilet paper, of things, because of how my brain thinks. And if I get in the truck, there are certain things I want in case I get stranded somewhere, which has happened before. And so it's like, I'm good. I got this, I got that, I got some camping gear in the back. Of course, I'm planning on going camping now that the weather's cool. And so, river, here I come, especially now the storm's gone. But anyway, so on all these things, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I realized that I guess that in my countryness, to some folks, I have become a true, shown up resident redneck. I have discussed that I have been a hippie redneck, but I realize that the hippie part of me is actually, there's some rednecks that are more a hippie than me, but they've never been a hippie. They've always been rednecks. So I don't know whether I've, changed for them or whatever. But I mean, even the way I perceive things, it's like, damn it, man. I mean, somebody was bitching. A friend of mine, on Facebook was saying something about them damn Republicans and something, something, something. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Hang on a second. Now, I thought these people, these friends of mine, had a little bit more intelligence than to be following the CNN line of thought about how nasty Trump and all this stuff is, and how bad Kavanaugh was and everything. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. And these people are still wanting to vote for Hillary, and they call me crazy. And I'm like, wait a minute, whoa. You guys want to have a fist fight because you still want to see Hillary? Oh, please. Hang on. I was a Democrat, and part of me still is in a way, but those Democrats don't exist anymore. Am I libertarian? Maybe. There's a small part in there. I think there's more of me that is, quote, some of the old Republican of the Lincoln era, not of some of these highfalutin rich folk Republicans. Now, there are rich Democrats who are just highfalutin and stupid. So, but anyway, um, but some of the millionaires that I've crossed paths with over the years were all Republican, and they had a negative attitude about anybody other than their own species, if you will. Okay, meaning Republican and wealthy. They didn't want any old hippies in the Republican Party. I'm here to tell you. So, regardless of how much we worked for them and made them their millions, but I digress. I worked for a gentleman. I won't go into it, but from North Carolina, and I lived up there for a time, and until I bought this place down here. In fact, had I not got thrown out of North Carolina, I would still be there, actually, in Western North Carolina, uh, around East Flat Rock, and in there, I would still be there. But I got shoved back down here to South Georgia, and that's when I found this piece of property, coincidentally, shortly thereafter. So it all worked out. But anyway, so I hope you liked a little bit of this chat. Thank you all for hanging out with me this evening. You all always, you have my heart. I'm I know I'm a crazy old man, and I love you for it. I've had some wonderful compliments from folks, and the fact that you'll just hang out with me on a Saturday night and listen to some of my stories, it just warms the cockles of my heart, as these old timers would say. And I consider this time sitting around with y'all that if I had a fire going right now, we'd be out sitting around the campfire and we'd be sharing stories and telling this and telling that. So when I do these kinds of things, like sort of this little impromptu thing tonight about being a redneck, I truly am. I mean, I look around as much as I want to try to deny it. I am a redneck and proud to be it, I guess, because of the things that I know. And no, I don't have a gun. The feds took it from me. But, I know how to defend myself. I've got bows and arrows. I got things you would rather be shot than to get hit with some of the stuff that I have. So, I can defend myself. But, I mean, think of a 7.5 inch circular blade thrown at you like a Japanese throwing star, and how badly that would hurt, regardless of whatever kind of vest you might have on. It'd rip right through it. That carbide is some strong stuff, and it'll rip through all kinds of things. But I have some old saw blades. Somebody asked me one time, and they said, "Why do you collect these old saw blades?" And I said, "Well, one of these days, I'm gonna I used to be a grinder and regrinder. Okay, that was my job, and I thought to myself, in my old age, I'll start a grind shop. I'll grind saw things, blah blah blah, whatever. And I still might. I found a grinder that I could actually afford, that I could regrind and reface these saw blades with, right? And give me something to do and maybe make a few bucks. Who cares, right? But I was thinking to myself, now the other part of that is they make great throwing objects. And if you think one of those little stars, those little Japanese stars or whatever, those fighting stars, they're pointed and everything. Now, those things, you can really get one hell of a velocity. But one day we were looking at implements of destruction, like in the old days. How could we go medieval, like what is it? Mel Gibson and the road, thingy. Anyway, Thunderdome, that kind of thing. Okay, apocalypse now, kind of. All right. So we were looking at things around the shop. What could we use if we needed to defend ourselves? Just as a practical, we were stoned off our gourds, by the way, and had a few beers. So we were feeling creative in a redneck sort of way. And so we got some of these old saw blades that I've been collecting, and we started pitching them, throwing them. Okay. And let me tell you, we got pretty damn good with them things. And I would not, I mean, you got a duck, but they're so big, I mean, they're this big versus a little, Chinese or Japanese throwing star. But the fact is that oh my God, the damage. And because they're so big, and if you pitch them right and get them to spin, they got one hell of a velocity. And I got 20 of these things. So it's like, well, do I have Japanese throwing spears? No, but I got a box of old, and some of them are 6-inch blades. I mean, I've got all kinds of different sizes of saw blades, but that's not my point. I've got things to protect myself with, So it's like, well, do I have a shotgun? No, the feds took it. Damn them, because I got busted for marijuana. It was a felony. So they confiscated my shotgun. Well, what? I was going to fend off an army with a shotgun? Well, now I can sneak up behind them with a bunch of these blades, maybe do more harm than that 20 gauge shotgun would have done. But just saying, so at being redneck, it's like, well, do I have guns? Do I have, no, but I wish I had one back, for protection. And there's just some, I wish I had my cannon. I used to have a cannon that was about this big that we'd stuff with gunpowder and shoot things up the hill. Unbelievable. Oh my God. And somebody stole my cannon. I would like to have another one of those, but now it's hard to get gunpowder because, you could blow something up, like use it in a cannon. Just saying. So, but there are ways to make gunpowder too, and I got a lot of pine trees and, so, but who's to say? But anyway, it's not about wanting to kill somebody, but it is about, maybe protecting yourself. But there are a lot of ways you can protect yourself if you just think out of the box. So in my redneckness, I've got old saw blades that are used as, throwing stars, So even us South Georgia boys, we got a little bit of that Japanese kind of high, yeah, watch this bitch kind of attitude towards us. So anyway, just another little tidbit of story to toss it on at the end. So I love you all. I do. I do. 30 days of Ghost of Abe Soldiers. Yeah. Best of times, Dave. Thank you. Ice Station said. Sunday afternoon here, so perfect for a cruisy day. Lovely, Marie. Absolutely. I think about you all the time. I don't have a picture in my head of what you look like. It's just there's Marie down there. She's on the opposite timeline, if you will. I think that's wonderful. Hook up a clay pot thrower with them blades, that's a very good point. But see, now to that side though, what you need to do though is like if you're going to really need to use one of them saw blades, having a pot thrower or something like that, that's really cool. But if you're going to be sneaky about it, then the best way to do it is to have it and throw it because you can use them sidearm like a frisbee or this way, overhand, underhand, or you can use them, especially, and you should wear a glove on the hand you're throwing with. But if I'm going to be sneaky and somebody's going to get me, I'm out of the house and they're going to come in my house and I'm going to trap them in my own house. And that's how I'm going to get them. I'm going to let them come on in. But when they try to get out of my house, that's when they're going to catch it because I'm going to be snuck out around the back through the woods and I'm going to be got on my blades. And as they try to come out of my house, they're going to be dead sons of bitches or hurt. Something's going to happen, but then they're going to be trapped in my house trying to figure out a way to get out, when I know all the secrets. So, but anyway, that's how it is. So have a God evening and you have a good evening, Marie, and blessings to all of you always. So thank you very much for being a part of my day and afternoon. Be safe, everybody. Spread them laughter, spread the spread the toilet paper. I think of how many Halloweens that we took toilet paper and and TP'd somebody's yard or their house or something like that. Some of these people wish they had some of that right now. So, but anyway, I'm fascinated with this toilet paper shortage, if you will. It just tickles my innards in a particular way. I just can't stop he. And I think it's the big fat asses, to be quite frankly, imagining them trying to it's just like I want to stop right there. But that's why I keep giggling. I'm sure you can find somebody to say, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh." It might not be Dave's picture, but you got one. I'm sure you can do. So much love to all of you. So a simple prayer before I go. My wish is that everyone will accept and receive the blessings of the universe, that each one of us will pass along this love and compassion to another human being, that we share the love, the knowledge, and the healing of the universe with each other. It has nothing to do with religion, but everything to do with our spirits. So keep your spirit strong, keep your spirit high, keep your spirit in good working order kind of deal. Keep that love going, y'all. From my soul heart and my soul's heart to you. I love you all. Till next time. Thank you much, Marie. Have a good evening. The rest of you have a good morning, and we'll talk at you soon.